and welcome to this talk on Agile Innovation in Challenging Times. My name is Dr. Robert Cooper, and I'm the creator of the Stage-Gate system that many manufacturing firms use to drive their new products to market. I'm the ISBM Distinguished Research Fellow at Penn State University in the United States and Professor Emeritus at McMaster University's Business School in Canada. Speed to market is vital in new product development, especially in these challenging times. We've heard a lot of talk about rushing new vaccines to market, new medical tests, new medical devices as part of the pandemic relief effort. But product developers, especially in the field of manufactured or physical products, have focused on acceleration to market for the last 2 decades. This is not new. And we have come up with some very novel and clever ways to drive new products to market faster and better and cheaper than ever before. This talk is in particular, the emphasis is on producers of physical products, everything from food to machines, from construction equipment to medical imaging devices, which today still represent about 70% of R&D spending in spite of all the attention on software type products. But why this heavy emphasis on speed? There have been numerous studies done over the last couple of decades that show that speed is critical. The first notion is that first in wins. If you can get your product in to the market before somebody else does, you have a higher likelihood of gaining market share, the largest market share, and being the winner in the marketplace. This is the results of a study done a few years ago by us, where we looked at products that were first in, second in, third in, or fourth in, late into the market. And the success rate is rather dramatic in terms of its change, dropping from 70% for first in products down to about 55%. So a lot of emphasis is placed on speed. Here's another slide from that same study, profitability. This vertical axis is a 0 to 10 scale, which looks at the profitability of that new product project relative to expectations, relative to the target profit. And a 10 way up here off the scale, that means far exceeded our expected profits, and a 0 means fell far short of our profits. And once again, we see that products that were first into the market fared much higher in terms of profitability versus those over on the right-hand side, which were fourth into the market and those products tended to fall far short of their goals. So speed is critical. So what are people doing? Well, many manufacturers for the last roughly 20 to 30 years have used a gating process, often called a phase gate or stage gate system, to drive new products to market. And this is a typical one right here, one that we actually developed. It's broken into typically 5 stages or phases. The first phase is discovery or ideation, coming up with ideas, scoping, mapping out the initial scope of the project, building the business case, getting definition, justifying the project, moving into development here in stage 3, followed by testing and validation, and finally launch. Across the top are the gates. This is the governance aspect of the stage gate process, whereby management makes the key go-kill decisions. Do we continue with this project or not? And these blue circles down here are meant to be iterations, interfaces with the customer or user, constantly validating the project. But look how they're reinventing. Look how these manufacturers, producers of hard goods, physical goods, look how they're reinventing this process to make it faster and quicker and more effective. One thing they're doing is making it more adaptive and flexible. By the way, for those of you that are interested in reading more on these topics, which we can't cover today, my webpage, which is down here at the bottom left-hand side, www.bobcooper.ca, hosts a number of articles that you can download at no charge. So they cover some of these topics we're not getting into, such as this adaptive and flexible one. People are also leaning their process, using principles from lean manufacturing to remove all non-value-added activities, thereby accelerating the process. But the topic we're looking at today is agile, which is yet a different set of principles. And that's really where our emphasis is going this morning, today. Agile development methods were not developed in the manufacturing world. They were developed in the software world. And so we've borrowed these methods and adapted and adjusted them to suit our types of product development. In the 1990s, the software industry faced many problems. If you went to a conference and a software guy was there talking about new products, typically his or her products were late to market, took far too long to develop, were over budget, and very often when the product was launched, it didn't work anyway. So these guys had a lot of problems, and as a result, they needed a better way to do their IT projects. A number of gurus came to the rescue, particularly in West Coast United States, Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, and they proposed a number of different methodologies to improve the way software products were developed. And there were at one point more than 10 different versions of these agile techniques. By the year 2001, these gurus, the major gurus, got together in a cabin in Utah in the United States in 2001 and put together the Agile Manifesto that laid out all the principles of this agile development method. And if you haven't read this manifesto and you're in product development, you owe it to yourself to Google it and have a good read. Oh, here, this umbrella shows some of the different agile methods: extreme programming, Crystal, Lean, etc. Two key tenets of the Agile Manifesto are as follows. Number one, working software is delivered frequently, not in months, but in weeks. In other words, every couple of weeks, you have something you can demo to a customer. That's something that actually works. And the other aspect, the other key tenet is that working software is the principal measure of progress, not PowerPoint presentations, not milestone reviews, but software that actually works. What have you done? What have you accomplished? Show it to me. This is the key measure of progress. Now, the Agile development methodology basically relies on a time-boxed iterative approach. The entire development phase of the project is broken down into a series of very short 2-week sprints all the way through development. So while development might last many months, it's broken down into a series of very, very quick sprints or quick runs. Now, these are time boxed in the sense that it starts on a Monday and ends typically on a Friday 2 weeks later. Not on Saturday, not on the following Monday, but on Friday, 5 o'clock p.m., 1700 hours. That's it. It's over. It's a hard stop. Now, these 2-week sprints are followed by a demo to customers and to management, the key stakeholders. This is a very evolutionary approach. The product definition at the beginning of the project is typically not known. It is fluid, and it changes as you get validations through these iterations of the product all the way through rapid development of the product versions for verification with customers and also with management. The other thing about this method is that plans change. The notion of a Gantt chart or a critical path plan complete with timeline and milestones, that's totally obsolete. You can't map out the next 4 months of the project. You map out 2 weeks. The time horizon is a 2-week plan, and it changes at the end of every sprint. This approach, this so-called agile development methodology, encourages rapid and very flexible response to new inputs. And so the project team can literally pivot partway down the football field as new input and new information becomes available. Oh, here's another aspect of this neat method. It's typically a dedicated team. That means these guys that are working on this software project work on this one project alone 100% of their time in one room. They're co-located. So you have a picture of 4 or 5 or 6 people all sitting in one room in Silicon Valley working on this project 24/7 and driving at the market as quickly as possible. Oh, another thing I'm not going to get into in great detail, there's a whole bunch of new roles. For example, surprise, surprise, no project leaders. Rather, we have a scrum master who's more of a coach than a project leader or project manager. So basically a quick summary of agile development for software, and this is for software, not hardware. For software, the sprint is the basic unit in this agile scrum method. A sprint basically lasts for between 2 weeks and 1 month, although 2 weeks is very typical in software. These are time boxed. They're restricted to a very specific time, start on a Monday, end on a Friday. And it's an effort of constant length. So you get into a bit of a rhythm. The word takt time is often used to describe the rhythm. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Picture, and using North American football as an analogy, a football team moving down the football field, 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards, goal. The word takt is a German word. It means the baton of an orchestra conductor as he or she guides his orchestra or her orchestra in a rhythmic fashion. Each sprint begins with a sprint planning meeting where the team sits down on that Monday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning and figures out how they're going to get the next 2 weeks done, what they're going to get done, and how they're going to do it, and they map out a very detailed plan of action for 2 weeks. The daily stand-up meetings, which I didn't mention, are often called scrum meetings, a term from British rugby. These daily stand-up meetings occur every morning during the sprint. So typically in a 2-week sprint, there'd be 10 of them. 15 to 20 minutes to organize each day. The project team sets their priorities, discusses what they got done yesterday, what they're going to get done today, shift responsibility, share knowledge, learn, and solve problems. Moves along very quickly. At the end of every sprint, as I suggested, there is a demo where the project team demos what they have completed. For example, a model or some lines of code or some screens is demoed to the key stakeholders, usually management and customers. And also there is a retrospect meeting where progress is reviewed and the lessons that we've identified over the last couple of weeks are identified, how we're going to do the next sprint better. Well, that's Agile Scrum for software. How about hardware? Well, before we get into the hardware aspect, just one slide here that I wanted to share with you, and it's an important one. One of the major differences between classic product development using classic project management methods and Agile. In classic development, the project environment is stable and predictable, and the problem or need can be understood by doing upfront studies and market research and lots of homework before the project gets underway. And usually the requirements for the solution, the product, can be defined correctly before the development begins. So this is classic project management, characterized by Gantt charts and critical path plans and timelines and milestones. In the Agile world, the project environment tends to be uncertain, and the problem or need can only really be understood by exploring possible solutions. So understanding the requirements for the product does not occur before development, but is part of solution finding through a series of these iterations of build something, test it with the customer, learn, and then build the next version all the way through. Now, how about hardware products? I jumped ahead of myself there, so let's get into this. Agile stage gate is the term that is being used to describe the new methodology for physical, manufactured, or hardware products, everything from machinery to food products, consumer goods and B2B goods as well. It's called the Agile Stage Gate Hybrid Model. It's a terminology that was coined by a set of Danish researchers about 5 or 6 years ago, around 2014. And they're getting very positive results, the companies that are doing this, getting to market faster by about 30% versus the traditional method. And also finding that they get the product right first time. And there's also much higher team morale. The project teams, even though they're under more intense pressure to get things done, actually love this system. What firms are doing, manufacturing firms are doing, is building the Agile Scrum project management method into the stages of the stage gate process that you saw on a previous slide. And they're replacing traditional project management methods such as Gantt charts, timelines, critical path plans, milestones, all of these things that traditional product developers have used. They're replacing them with the Agile methodology. One more point I want to make, many manufacturers are now embedding software into their products as part of the digital transformation. They're doing what is called smart product development. In fact, a German study revealed that some 29% of physical product development now, say a machine, is now software. So this Agile Stage Gate hybrid model can handle both types of projects, the physical part of the project and the software facet of the project. And since both teams have to work together, this hybrid model makes a lot of sense. How it happened in the manufacturing world. In Europe, a number of companies were starting to do this by about 2013, 2014. I first saw it with a company that if you live in North America and visit Home Depot, the do-it-yourself store, you might be familiar with this name. The company's called Chamberlain, and they make automatic garage door openers that are typically controlled by a remote control device in your car, but things were changing. I happened to meet the head of engineering of this company. I happened to meet the head of engineering of this company at a conference in Tampa, Florida, about 2013, and he was describing how his new smart products, which had to link to the automobile's IT system or to the person's smartphone, they wanted to open their garage door using their smartphone. he was having a problem because in one room he would have a group of engineers, mechanical and electrical engineers, using traditional stage gate, whereas the IT guys that he'd had to hire to build in software wanted to use agile development, and they were fighting. And one of the suggestions I made to the vice president of engineering was, why don't you put them together in the same room and let them work it out? And they came up with what I saw as the first agile stage gate hybrid model in North America. They put together a model that used sprints and scrums for both the physical product and the software development of the product. They used daily scrums, about 20 minutes each, much like the software guys did. And the sprints were 2 weeks in length to start with. That was a little bit tough for physical product, hardware type product developers to get something they could show. It's now 3 weeks. And at the end of every sprint, they had to show something physical, the result of a completed task. The project teams in this company had dedicated team members, which meant that you couldn't do every project this way because some projects were much smaller, couldn't afford dedicated teams. So about 20% of their projects, the bigger, higher risk, more ambitious projects were done in this way. There's a scrum master in place, the coach, and they were using this only for major projects, about 20% of their total. And it's now 7 years in, and it's working very well, delivering about a 30% time reduction. And also a result that was quite surprising, the products work much better once they are launched. The physical product works better, fewer problems and defects. So here's a typical agile stage gate model. Across the bottom, we have the traditional stage gate: ideation, concept, business case, development, validation, and launch, and the 5 gates shown. These gold circles are representations, artist representations of the iterations. In ideation, concept, business case, development, validation, and launch. Note that in the software world, agile development tends to be used for the technical stages, which would be the development and validation phase. In the physical product world, users are tending to use it all the way through, even back in ideation. I mentioned European companies. One of the first companies to use this approach in Europe was a division of Lego in Denmark called Lego Education, which is actually a B2B firm. Lego Education makes software and physical products for education for children. And they began a highly innovative new product project called Story Starter in 2011. These are products designed to be sold to teachers and schools to teach your children, your younger children, how to be better writers, readers, better at math, and so on. This was a product designed to help younger children become more creative at writing. Their project management, the product was managed using Lego's tried and proven StageGate model. Lego's been using StageGate since about 1995 or so, and they've used it very, very effectively. But they found that this new project did not fit well with the traditional design iterations and moved exceptionally slowly. One of the problems they got into was that the teachers, they had a panel of several panels of teachers that, in order to seek market input, the teachers weren't sure what they were looking for. When they sat the teachers down, they said, what are you looking for in this product? And the teachers said, well, we want Mary and Johnny to become more creative writers. Well, can't you be more specific? The teacher said, no, we're not sure. Why don't you show us something? So finally, in great frustration, but almost accidentally, partway through this project, the project leader had decided to incorporate a digital documentation software tool, and some folks from the IT department called the Digital Solutions Group, they joined the team and they brought with them Agile and said, give it a try. And so the Story Starter team started to try this new Agile approach built into the StageGate approach for the entire project. But management at Lego didn't want to lose the strategic benefits of StageGate, particularly the governance aspects. So they kept StageGate while implementing Agile within the gating system. And the so-called Agile StageGate hybrid model emerged. And as I said, it was actually Danish researchers studying this company that first came up with that terminology. Agile StageGate at Lego Education, this project team, that Story Starter, began using this hybrid model. They had sprints, typically 2 to 3 weeks, 15-minute daily stand-up meetings, very visual scrum board, daily activity logs. This is a very, very visual process with a lot of new charts that help the project team understand where they are and keep them on track. A prioritized project backlog, sprint planning meetings, and so on. All the same aspects that the software guys would use. This agile stage gate model was used during the development phase of StoryStarter and continued into the implementation phase. And the result was it saw a remarkable acceleration and was actually launched about a year after it was adopted in 2015. An immediate increase in productivity, much better team communication, improved workflow, and it resulted in a launch of a highly successful and innovative new product just 12 months later, and is now being rolled out. This new model, Agile StageGate, is being rolled out across Lego, not only in Lego Education, but across all their businesses. So when you go into a shop and buy a new toy, a new Lego toy for your son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter, think of this Agile StageGate process. The Agile teams practice iteration, iterative development. They use a series of loops or steps, each loop consisting of typically a build something, test it with the customer, get feedback, and then revise your thinking. They define what information is fixed and reliable and what design elements of the product are fixed versus variable. And they develop a first very early version of the product based on that in one of the earlier sprints. It could be a virtual prototype or a protocept. And they test it with the customer seeking fast feedback, which they then use to produce the next and more complete version, perhaps a crude model or a rapid prototype and so on. And they're using a number of tools such as models, virtual reality, augmented reality, to demo products that don't exist to customers, and also computer simulations and animation and rapid prototyping. All of these new tools, some of them not available a decade ago, are now enabling project teams to demo the product to the customer partway through development without having a final and finished product. Steve Jobs had a famous expression. He said, people don't know what they're looking for until they see it. So show them something, get something in front of people so you can get that market feedback early, often, fast, and cheap, all the way through development, not waiting until the very end, the field trials, etc. Too late. Get something out there early, fast, and cheap. Here's a GE example. This is one of the companies we studied that is using an agile stage gate approach. They're actually building turboprop engines using 3D printing. Now, I'm not sure I would want to fly on a plane that has one of these, but this is more for a test stand, obviously partway through development. And here's another company. This is a disguised name. It's showing a demoed product called corrugated plywood. This is actually made out of paper, which they were able to demo to customers that were using plywood. I mentioned this is a very visual process. Here are some of the tools people use. This is from one of the companies we worked with. The so-called project backlog lists a number of different items that have to be done, tasks that have to be done in the project. The Kanban board, this is the flow of work items. These are items to do, underway, and done, very similar to a Kanban board in production. And finally, a burn down chart, which shows how fast the project team is burning through, getting the tasks done as part of their 2 or 3 week sprint. So there are very visual tools used in this Agile Stage Gate. There's usually a large board that displays all of these different charts on them. Sometimes it's a physical board, sometimes it's a screen. And very often these team rooms have one glass wall that anybody walking by the room can look inside and take a look at these different charts and see exactly where the team is, whether they're behind schedule, ahead of schedule, etc. So a very, very visual process. And again, if anyone is interested in getting into some of these in a little more detail, please log on to my webpage and you can see some of them. Is this working? Absolutely. A study done in Germany in 2018 of 228 European Union manufacturing firms, mostly engineered products, German companies. Here are some of the results they found. This scale is a 0 to 4, hardly any value on the left-hand side, very large value. What they're typically seeing is shorter times to market, and as I mentioned before, 30% is the figure often mentioned. Improved adherence to the schedule, higher team morale. That is a surprise. One would have expected that a team under such pressure, time pressure, would be getting very tired and frustrated. Not at all. They seem to have higher morale. Reduced project risk. Technical feasibility is proven earlier in the game, lower project failures, increased productivity of the development project, and finally, increased flexibility to react to changes. So if you're a manufacturer and haven't taken a hard look at agile development methods, do take a look. More articles, as I said, are available on my webpage. It is becoming a technique that a number of leading edge companies, including companies such as GE and Lego and Honeywell and others, are using to get their new products to market faster, better, and cheaper. The next couple of pages list a number of references that you might want to take a look at. So I wish you good luck, Godspeed, and farewell as you move ahead with new product development. Be safe.